Hello everyone, the Nerdy Steve here. Today I will be featuring a mono black aggro deck in Standard. The list is in the description below. I'm going to talk a little bit about the plan of the deck and then we'll play a couple of games. So, let's go. This deck is a little different from a previous mono black aggro deck that I featured on this channel before. That deck was much more aggressive in the sense of how many 1-drops and 2-drops, and we also had the Black Defiler to give our creatures +1/+1 and Menace, which would make them harder to block. This deck is different in that we have, some aggressive creatures and Evolved Sleeper and Tenacious Underdog, along with, Graveyard Trespasser and Sheoldred, but we have a lot more reactive cards and removal as well. We have Concealing Curtains along with Infernal Grasp and Cut Down as ways to kill opponents' creatures, along with, Liliana of the Veil. And then we also kind of have Invoke Despair as a really, really big, impactful 5-mana card that can kind of clear the way, deal more damage, or draw us into more creatures. So, while this might be considered a more mid-range deck, I do think it's still a very, very good aggro classification because, again, ideally we are playing our creatures early. We want an Evolved Sleeper or an Underdog and start attacking as soon as we possibly can. And then we want our bigger spells to kind of support and back up the pressure that we apply to the board, right? I think that's how this differentiates itself from the mid-range deck. While we do have Bankbuster and, Sorin that can generate card advantage over time, we are probably going to be attacking with Bankbuster and creating, the 2/3s with Sorin as our first line instead of trying to use them to create card advantage. If that kind of makes sense, we want to apply pressure when we can rather than get that card advantage. That's kind of a plan B for this deck instead of our plan A. But that's basically, kind of what you would expect from our deck. We want to, cast our creatures and kill our opponent as quickly as we possibly can, and then back it up with powerful threats like Sheoldred and Sorin that if our opponent doesn't deal with, they will die very, very, very quickly. So, with all that being said, let's go play some games and see how it works. Also, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, and subscribe. That's a great way to help support me and this channel. If you have any deck suggestions, please let me know. I am always looking for more things to play. And I have a Twitch if you want to watch me play live Magic. And I have a Metafy if you're interested in coaching. Those links are down below. Now, thank you for watching, and let's play some games. Okay, this is good. We have Evolved Sleeper, right? Which is kind of like an ideal turn 1 play for us. This card is a threat in that it can deal tons of damage over time. And can, if our opponent doesn't do anything, it will start drawing us a lot of cards. And drawing the Concealing Curtains there is very, very wonderful. Because now on our 3rd turn, we can activate it, remove something of our opponents that's a little problematic, and just really, really put our opponent behind. But our opponent didn't do anything, which means if we go to activate to transform the Concealing Curtain, any removal spell in response to the trigger will kill it like an opponent's cut down, and then we can't, then we waste our mana and do nothing. So what I'm going to do is attack first. See what our opponent does. And then we're going to just Tenacious Underdog. I'm not going to activate the Concealing Curtains because I don't want to leave us into that position. Now, if our opponent has an Infernal Grasp, now we're glad we didn't do that, right? We really want our opponent to tap out here for something. But again, not happening. And this is actually one of the problems with Liliana of the Veil in this deck. Or not in this deck, because it's fine. We're going to discard a cut down. But a problem with Liliana is that your opponent could have... If you go to plus Liliana and you're discarding a good card and your opponent's discarding nothing, you're kind of very, very upset at that. And we had a removal spell, and this opponent looks like they might be in some type of reanimation strategy. So that Liliana just didn't line up particularly well against what our opponent is doing. And maybe we're supposed to keep the Liliana in our hand and hold our 2 removal spells. But I wanted to get Liliana out there because now I'm able to double remove creatures. And I think that might be fine. But I don't know if that was right or not. It could be wrong. But our opponent did miss a land drop. And they likely have Cruelty of Gix. So we want to be a little worried about that. So what I'm going to do here is Infernal Grasp our opponent. And now that we have no cards in hand and our opponent doesn't have anything, this hopefully will be a free uptick on the Liliana. I'm tired of your secrets. Our opponent did discard a card. And then we'll just do that. I guess we could draw a 1-drop, so it's probably worth seeing what we get with the Reckoner. Oh, and that's an Invoke is really fantastic here. Now, our opponent did have the Cruelty of Gix, which can bring back the Titan, which is going to be a little bit of a problem for us, potentially. But we do get to... I don't think it necessarily matters. Let's invoke first. And then we get to kill our opponent's Titan. One of your friends has to leave. And then I'm going to crew here because this is 1 more damage, right? And that's also a very important thing to realize with this deck, and I bring this up a lot with Bankbuster in general. A lot of times you have a free crew with Bankbuster, you know, where it just deals a little more damage by crewing and attacking. And it's something, you know, to consider, and I feel like it's neglected a lot, or looked over, rather. And it's something, you know, to try and remember. We're going to make our opponent sacrifice Sheoldred, and then again, we're going to crew again to attack for 4 and put our opponent at 1. And then GG. Alright, we can keep this hand because we have the Evolved Sleeper, which is probably like the best card we can have here. Then we also have Sheoldred's and the Bankbuster. Now, this is an interesting choice here, whether or not we want to just deal 2 right now or activate the Bankbuster. And I'm not sure what the correct play is. What I do like is this play allows us to next turn. Oh, well, there we go. Now I'm glad I did that. But it would allow us next turn to play a Swamp.
Off you go.
And then double activate it. What I'm going to do here, though, is just discard the Tenacious Underdog to Liliana. And then activate the Bankbuster.
Don't overthink things.
And we can just keep on drawing. Now this might seem a little silly, but our opponent has removal for Underdog. We still draw a card. And I think, oh, except unless it was the Wandering Emperor. So that's very, very bad for us. And I was going to bring up that too, but our opponent cast it before I could say anything. So let's get... I think I want to get rid of a swamp here. We'll cast our Sheoldred, probably. Cutdowns are not going to be fairly helpful here. Let's see what we get. Yeah, this is a little bit of a not wonderful spot we're in. We're going to discard a swamp.
I'm tired of your secrets.
We really need our invokes to kind of allow us to get over what our opponent is doing. Oh, wow, an ow. This is very bad for us. We'll cut down that. That is an invoke. But with ow, it's a little less appealing, right? And Edgar as well.
We've got the edge in this fight.
We each will discard a card. I guess we have to discard a Sheoldred. Five plus 6 is 11. We'll go down to 2 then. Let's see what our opponent gets here. Our opponent didn't get anything? Oh, wow. Well, I'm very happy with that. And now we get to kill Liliana. Oh, wow. I almost feel bad. GG. Alright, we'll keep this. We do not have a 1-drop, sadly, and we also don't have 3 lands. So that's a little bit not great for us, but Reckoner. All right. We did. All right. We drew out of it, so I'm happy now. And now we have a Tenacious Underdog into Trespasser into Sorin or Sheoldred. If our opponent has Liliana here, that would be bad. Wedding Announcement isn't particularly wonderful, but again, out of all the things our opponent could have done, we're kind of fine with that. Mainly because we also have the Invoke Despair to kind of help us out there. I think next turn, instead of Sheoldred, I want Sorin. Because our opponent is more of a mid-range deck, this is one of the times where the Sorin Plus is going to generate a lot of value, hopefully. Of course, I mean, I'm going to minus Sorin first, because you know, that's what I want to do. But starting next turn, we're going to be able to draw a lot of cards and put a lot of pressure on our opponent. I guess it depends on what you mean by a lot of pressure. And if we can get another land to invoke to get rid of the wedding announcement, to remove all the +1/+1 from all of our opponent's things, we're good. There's just a lot going on here, because we also have no idea what our opponent has in hand, right? It could be almost anything. Our opponent could have right of whatever it is that exiles a permanent we control. Could have another wedding announcement. There is a lot going on here. Knight of Dusk's Shadow. Okay. That I might want to Infernal Grasp now. So we do want to gain life. We do want to gain life. But I also... want to invoke. Let's invoke first.
Wish to know my secrets? Very well.
The Knight of Dust Shadow is actually a card I can see becoming a lot more popular. There is a lot of incremental life gain in a lot of decks. And being able to stop that on a creature, on a 2/2 Death Menace creature that gets pumped up and can, like, kill a lot of things in combat, it's just a really nice ability on an already good creature. And I could imagine wanting to play cards like Knight of Dust Shadow in different variants of aggressive black decks. Because being able to stop, our Sheoldred life gain or the life gain from vampires is just really, really, really cool. But our opponent is doing that. And we just wait. I have no idea what they can pick. Probably Sheoldred would be my guess, but maybe the Infernal Grasp if our opponent doesn't want us to get, removal for the night. But yeah, it just makes sense for that to happen. And now our opponent has to figure out how much they want to commit to kill our Sorin, and it'd probably be a lot because Sorin's going to, again, if you don't kill it this turn, the Sorin's gonna plus and give us a lot. The longer Sorin stays out on the battlefield, right, the harder it is to kill because we have a lot more blockers and ways to, just defend it. So our opponent could attack all out on the Sorin, but then we get to kill a lot of creatures, and so you're giving up a lot of resources to do that. And it's not a very easy decision to make. Okay. So we can also save the Sorin if we want. Oh, no, we can't. It has Menace. Yeah, no, that's fine with me. Alright, that's gonna kill our Trespasser. And Sorin's dead. But, again, I have a Vampire that I'm very, very happy with. Though right now we're at, like, I wouldn't say we are far ahead. That helps us a lot, though. So I'm gonna evolve Sleeper and Underdog here. And then say go. We have the Infernal Grasp and Cut Down if we need to remove something. But again, our opponent probably needs to find a bigger creature or a planeswalker. And they can because of the Bankbuster and, a lot of cards in hand. But this Evolved Sleeper hopefully will start putting in a lot of work for us. The Graveyard Trespasser, okay. Again, that's very unfortunate and good for our opponent, but at the end of the day, it's just a really big vanilla creature that our Evolved Sleeper can, you know, deal with eventually. Okay, so we will do this. There's potential we want to wait to do this if we think our opponent has a cut down. Like maybe our opponent had a cut down and was saving. By us leaving up mana, we couldn't make the Evolved Sleeper out of cut down range. But our opponent didn't have that, so we'll just do this. And say go again. This is kind of like the slow and steady. We are now being less of an aggressive deck and more of a, you know, mid-range control deck. And we're riding this Evolved Sleeper as much as we possibly can. And maybe I should have done the Concealed Curtain there. My assumption is, or my theory is, I want to activate the Evolved Sleeper, and I want to keep up removal. And while the cut down, if we use Infernal Grasp, we cannot draw a card with Evolved Sleeper. But if we use Evolved Sleeper, we can still cut down. And I think having that is much more important than the Concealing Curtain. Alright, that's a little unfortunate. We're going to lose an Underdog there. But again, our opponent doesn't really have a lot of very good attacks. Mainly because our Evolved Sleeper can now block the Graveyard Glutton. Or a Bankbuster. Our opponent will probably have to tackle everything, and that's what they want to do, right? Okay. So that is a lot of damage. Let's see what we draw here. Would like to not draw that, though. I probably should have waited for blockers then. Yeah, that was a really big mistake on my end, and yeah, I needed to wait for blockers to be declared to do that because we just took a lot of damage for no reason. There was no reason to do that. So that's actually very, very bad. We should be at a lot more life. So hopefully we don't get punished. I mean, we did get punished for it, right? Like, ouch. Sometimes you make mistakes, and you lose because of it. I don't know if we would still win, because our opponent would still have a really good position, right? We'd just be at 6 more life here, right? But I think we're still very likely to die. So I still feel bad, but, you know, learn from my mistakes, right? And wait as much as you, or don't wait as much as you possibly can. Or, you know, block before you go to pump up a creature if you're going to block with it anyway, right? So we made a mistake, and that's okay. GG. Thank you for watching me play some Mono Black Aggro in Standard. This deck was fun, and it was really, really good. One of the benefits of the post-Meat Hook ban, it has made a lot of different decks much more viable. And so, you know, there are a lot of just different things to do, and that's really, really great. And I actually don't know now if there is one really good way to build mono black, specifically because there are just so many different options and different cards are better in vastly different metagames and situations. And so that is definitely something to consider. This version of mono black aggro is a lot less aggro than the previous versions that I've covered on this channel, but like there are definitely levers that you can spin in different, ways you can go. And I think that's going to be fun to explore and see how, if there does become an ideal version of this deck. And I do also want to add, right, I always like to stress in these games, mistakes happen and you mess up a lot and you do things in the wrong order. And I think it is very easy to get frustrated and upset at when, have a very, very, like, obvious misplay. But I think the best thing you can do is, learn from it, see that it happened, and then try to not do it again in the future. Because honestly, you will do it in the future. Mistakes happen. But, not getting frustrated at your mistakes helps you learn from them a lot more. At least that's what I think. So if you can learn one thing from this video, it's that. It's that be okay with your mistakes and try and learn from them. But with all that being said, if you haven't already, you should totally like, comment, subscribe. That's a great way to help support me and this channel. I also stream live at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve, and I do coaching. All those links are down below in the description. But regardless, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening wherever you are. Bye.